Another Dooley Noted podcast comes to you from the Coach's Podcast Room at Spurrier's Gridiron Grill in Celebration Point. Okay, welcome into another Dooley Noted podcast presented by Titan MRI from the Meldon Law Gator Studios here at the Ponderosa. Happy to have you all join us. We got a good show today. Sam Kouvaris is going to join us. Of course, he's a longtime fixture in Jacksonville. We'll talk to him about his Hall of Fame vote and the future of Florida Georgia in Jacksonville. I'm curious to get his take on that. He's been around it a long time. On Monday, I'm pretty sure Coach Spurrier, I know he's going to be back, so I think we'll have him Monday, and we'll have Robbie back Monday. Robbie's in West Virginia now. Everybody's having all their vacations, but it's time to end the vacations, guys. It's all time to come back and be part of a build-up to college football season, which is basically what it is. And then on Thursday, I'm pretty sure Chris Lowe is going to join us from ESPN and kind of wrap up SEC Media Week. As I prefer to call it, I don't want to call it Media Days anymore. It's basically a full week. I mean, when you're going to have something that you've got to get to on Sunday and you don't leave till maybe even Friday, which I think a lot of people will, that's a full week. Okay. Anyway. All right, so that'll be fun too. We've got a couple new sponsors coming on. In fact, Hugh Kane, Allstate, we're going to start probably, I don't know, Zach, we need to look for a mayhem moment, and that's what we're going to be doing, the Hugh Kane Allstate mayhem moment, and just finding crazy, wild things that have happened in the world of sports. We'll try to mostly be Gator stuff, but look, if we have some weird things happen, we like weird things, and especially once we get into college football season, the weird really starts to happen. So that'll be a lot of fun to do that, and we'll let you know about our other sponsors as well once we get confirmation on everybody. Really trying to do this and have a great football season. I really want to have a lot of fun with this podcast during football season. We got a lot of ideas of things we want to do with different categories. Like I really want to do a top 12 and we did that for a while with trying to remember who it was. I think it was Alex Wesley's construction. Yeah, we did it with them for a while, but I now it's vitally important. It matters. The top 12 matters. Back then, we were just kind of looking ahead to what it would be. All right, let us get to our Process Service of Gainesville starting five, brought to you, as always, by Process Service of Gainesville and the great Scott Hart. And we appreciate him. Wrapping it up with him, and going to miss him, but we got a new sponsor coming on, so that'll be fun for our starting five, because we always love the starting five, because the starting five starts the show, and it's the five biggest, and that's what I've decided it is, and it is my show, to what I think are the five most important stories. Okay, let's go with number one on our Process Service of Gainesville starting five, and that is Billy Napier yesterday at SEC Media Days. I watched the whole thing. I watched his interview afterwards as well with, I think it was, who did he have up there? He had Roman Harper and I think Sam Acho and I don't know, but anyway, whoever it was didn't really matter. Yeah, was it Alyssa Lang? Yeah, I think she did it. Anyway, so I watched it all, and he came across as a very confident guy. Now I will say this: there's 16 coaches there. They're all pretty confident right now. They're 0-0 this year. They haven't lost any games this year. But there were some things that he talked about, and I know that I always wrote my column based on what I got up in the big room. And the big room, for those of you who've never been to Media Days, and most of you haven't, they take the players and the coach up to this separate room, and they do it for everybody. It used to be, I think it used to be that somebody started doing it, and I think Florida jumped on the bandwagon. They thought it was a good idea, and then now everybody does it pretty much. I don't know. There may be some schools that don't, but they have a segment where they do the local media, and they have a segment where they do the national media, and they're usually about 15-minute Q&As before they get up there. So by the time they get up there, they're not going to say anything that we haven't already heard, but you get more insight because it's a more relaxed setting. And what I would do is I would go in with the local media and stay. I wasn't going to leave just because national media. They were all friends of mine, guys like Chris Lowe, Matt Hayes, Dennis Dodd, and they love having me. I would try to stay in the background, not ask any questions because it was their time. But you get so much stuff out of that. That's where I got the story that really I think was the beginning of the end for Jim McElwain, which was him complaining about Florida not putting any money into facilities after they had just had a meeting with him and explained how they were going to put money into facilities. That was the beginning of the end for him. I know that. But some of the things that I thought were interesting was, look, somebody came after him a little bit because he said that they were on schedule the last 2 years. And they said, on schedule, you're 11 and 14. I'm like, yeah, no, you weren't on schedule on the field. You were on schedule off the field. And that's what it was more than anything. You were on schedule off the field. But on the field, not quite there. But they were just trying to build the culture. And I know it was tough for Gator fans to sit through. Never fun, especially if you've gone through one losing season. And I guess you could make an argument. It's not really a losing season if you lose your bowl game to get to a losing season. But the bottom line is they've had 3 straight losing seasons. But he's very confident because of all the changes he's made. And he talked about how they built up all this lean muscle, 500 pounds for the entire team of muscle. He talked a little bit about McClain, Cormani McClain, who's a new transfer, and there's been talk that he's already causing problems or something, and he's not good for locker room or whatever. And he dismissed that. He goes, he's already put on 10 pounds of muscle. He's got it. He knows this is his second chance, and he really wants to make it happen. So it's going to be interesting to see that go on. And he did mention this: 41,000 snaps returning, and that is the key to this Florida team. Is now, all that said, you still got to do a better job. You've got to do a better job in a lot of areas. And he talked about how they've struggled on defense, and struggle's not the word for it. They have been historically bad 3 years in a row, and it's just been terrible, but they've got to get better at it. But it was interesting to watch him talk. And then, of course, I didn't know this young lady. I didn't write her name down. I have no idea what her name is, but I guess she's a country singer. And they had to get her to re-record their song for the SEC Nation. Which I didn't even know there was a song, but there is a song. And turns out she was at Florida. She went to Florida. So she's a Gator. So good for her. And I have new respect for that song, right? But they are coming. They announced that breaking news yesterday that they're going to be in Gainesville for the Miami game, which I figured would happen because I would guess the college game day will go to Georgia Clemson. I would guess that. I don't know if they've announced that yet. There are a lot of good games that weekend. It might have been at LSU Southern Cal, but they're playing on Sunday, so it's a Saturday show. We'll see what happens. But anyway, I know they don't like to double up. Sometimes they double up anyway, but I don't think game day will be coming here. Anyway, FCC Nation will be here, which means Tebow will be here, which means Laura Rutledge will be here. And it's always good to see them when they show up. So that'll be cool for the Miami game. All right, let's get to number 2 in our process. Service of Gainesville starting 5. And that is this, I don't want to say epiphany that I had. I did, when I was listening to Coach Napier talk, I did have this point where I went, you know what? This is going to be a really hard on your nerves season for Florida fans. Yeah, it's going to be a struggle, man. It's going to be tough because either you're going to stink again And I say stink. And I know everybody wants to say, well, Florida, they were this far away from getting to a bowl game, blah, blah, blah. That shouldn't be the goal. The goal is not to get to a bowl game. The goal is to get into the playoffs. If you fall short and go to a bowl game, great. If you fall way short and don't go to a bowl game, now your coach is definitely on the hot seat. Okay. I don't think he is right now. I've said that all along. But the bottom line is he's got to win a bunch of games. And for Florida to do that, and especially after listening to him, it's pretty clear what he wants is for this team to get to 5 minutes left in the game and have a chance to win every game they play. And then finish them, win them, find a way to win them. Pretty clear to me that's what he's hoping to do. Now, that can be tough on you. Was Arkansas tough on you? Of course it was. Was Missouri tough on you? I thought I was going to throw up. Go back to the really, you can go back to the Utah game. They could have still come back and won that game. The games that they won, obviously South Carolina was mental, But I'm just saying, even if they have success, it isn't going to be the Spurrier 96 blowing everybody out success. Okay, it's going to be more the try to find a way to win close games. And as I've said all along, they go 9-3. I think they get in the playoffs because now again, a lot will depend on what other teams do. But because of the schedule they play, I think they get to the playoffs. They can get to 9-3. I think they can. I'm not saying they will, but I think they can. I think they've got a good enough team, and they have. It's a tough schedule, but as I have pointed this out, it's not necessarily that much tougher than last year. You got 7 home games. They can still get this done. All right. Let's get to number 3 on our process service of Gainesville starting 5. And that is I have already changed my order of finish already. But again, that happens. And maybe you should just ignore this one because sometimes you sit there and you're watching these things and you're like, you kind of buy into what a coach is saying, or you look at the schedules again and you see them up there plastered up, and for the first time you really pay attention to them. But anyway, here's what I did. You guys all know I'm picking Texas to win it all. I'm going to pick them to win the SEC. I'm not really. I haven't decided if I'm picking them to win the national championship. I think they certainly can. Ohio State is a team that I am curious to see how they play, especially early in the year, because they have bought quite a team up there now that it's legal to buy teams. But anyway, I still have Texas number 1, and now I have Alabama number 2. And the reason is I kind of studied it a little more and listened to Kalen DeBoer and thinking about how good the offense was and listened to Jalen Milroe. I just kind of changed my mind. I think they're going to be the old. I don't think they're going to have any drop off at all. And then I switched another pick. Number 3, I had Ole Miss. The talent he's assembled over there, they're going to score. We know that. They're going to be better on defense. And I think one thing Saban said, and Saban's just tremendous on TV. I love him. But one thing he said was that Ole Miss used to not be able to match up with Georgia and Alabama. That's why that's the 2 teams they lost to last year. They couldn't match up even last year. He's put together a team now that can match up with them physically. And that's going to be interesting to see. Look, Ole Miss could win the whole thing, win the national title. And then I can't make any more Lane Kiffin jokes then, right? And then I had Georgia 4th. Now, Georgia 4th, what are you doing? They're the number 1 pick in the country. Everybody's picking them number 1. I looked at that schedule again, and I went, oh, no. Now, I did the same thing last year with FSU, and they went undefeated, of course, until the bowl game and everything when everybody opted out. But when you look at Georgia's schedule, they got to go to Alabama, they got to go to Texas, and that's the Formula One weekend, and the fans aren't going to be able to get in there because they can't get hotel rooms. They got to go to Ole Miss. I mean, these are the three teams I believe that I just said I'm picking at the top. Georgia's got to go to all those places. And they still have to play Missouri, and they still have other games. And they open up with Clemson. And I don't know that Clemson's going to be anything special, but I think they could be good enough to beat Georgia. Now, Georgia has stockpiled talent. There's no question. They've got a great program. They've got it running the way Florida wants to run their program. But I just think at some point you've got to take a step back and have a season where maybe you go 10-2. And maybe you sneak in the bottom of the playoffs, or maybe you don't. I don't know. But you know, that schedule, yeah, we talk about Florida's schedule, and I think, I hate to make this argument, but I think Georgia's got a tougher schedule. Florida's schedule is considered the toughest because they play Miami and FSU. And you throw in UCF, which is now a Power 5 or Power 4, I guess it is, school. You know, that's the reason their schedule is. I don't think their SEC schedules is as hard as Georgia's, to be honest with you. So we'll see what happens. But isn't it nice, Gator fans, that Georgia has a hard schedule for once after all those years of ducking Texas A&M? We used to have fun with that. All right, let's get to number 4 on our process service of Gainesville starting 5, and that is the British Open, which is going on right over there on that TV with the sound off. I did get up like an idiot at 5:30 in the morning, actually, just to come out. I said, "Look, I got to get ready for the podcast. I can do that while I'm watching the Open. I really want to see the Open. I'm looking forward to it. I love Tarun, love watching it play. It's been fun so far. There have been some blow-ups. Rory McIlroy blowed up good. Who else was it that was? Oh, Rahm was struggling. DeChambeau. At one point he was 6 over. I don't know where he is right now. Justin Thomas and Adam Scott having this resurgence, you know, in their later years. So Thomas was leading, and again, I don't want to say too much because you may be listening to this Friday night and you already know who's leading at the halfway point. But right now, Justin Thomas did shoot 3 under today, and the course has been a lot of fun to watch. I just love the pop bunkers. I love that you've got to think your way through it. You know, it's not about how far you can hit it. It's about where you hit it. And I love courses like that. I think it's been a lot of fun so far to watch it. And I can't wait. Although I will admit that I may need to take a nap because today I'm doing the radio show by myself. I do have a guest. Scott Carter's going to stop in for a little bit. But yeah, I may need a little nap. Anyway, can't wait to watch it all weekend. I like that you can get up in the morning and watch it. You can get up in the morning and watch it, be done, go play 18, then go to dinner. So that's the good thing about the British Open. I love majors that are either like the British Open, and that's the only one that's really like it, that start really early, or ones that end really late. You know, like when they play the U.S. Open out on Pebble Beach or something, and you know they can go late. Well, they can go pretty late. Somebody was saying that it doesn't get dark there till 11 o'clock, which makes me really want to go back. That's still the only thing on my bucket list, really. I've got, you know, I don't have much on my bucket list. I've played Augusta. I've been to Super Bowls. I've been to the World Series. I've been to the NBA Finals. I've done a lot of things in my life. I'm very lucky. Playing golf in Scotland is one thing I do want to do. So maybe I'll get that together eventually. And then finally, on number 5 on our process service Gainesville starting 5, I did want to mention that Florida's baseball team with the NFL or NBA, Major League Baseball draft came out pretty well. I mean, they're going to lose a recruit, but they knew that would happen probably. Obviously, you knew Kaggs was gone. You knew Neely was gone. They've lost a few guys, but it looks like Shelton's going to come back, even though he got drafted. Looks like Ty Evans has announced he's coming back. You know, there's some other guys there. Pierce Coppola is going to be back, it looks like. So they're going to be fine. And then with the additions, they hit the portal pretty hard. and it's going to be good again. That's all we care about, right? So they survived it. I mean, it's always a difficult time, even though the rules have kind of changed on the way they do the draft. It's still a difficult time for coaches because, if guys take a leap of faith and draft a guy in the first round, now all of a sudden he's slotted for a lot of money that you can't pay him. You're worried about losing them. You got to worry about coming up with enough money to keep guys. Because don't forget, these guys aren't on full scholarships. I still think it's ridiculous. I think the time has come now with what's going on, maybe to get them back on full scholarships, but it may never happen because of NIL may have ruined that part of it, because they can make enough in NIL to, make up for not having a full scholarship. But anyway. All right. So that is our process service of Gainesville starting five. We'll take a break. We'll come back with Sammy DeKay. Sam Kouvaris is going to talk about a lot of things, including the Florida Gators. All that coming up and more here on another duly noted podcast presented by Titan MRI from the Meldon Law Gator Studios.
Titan MRI, North Central Florida's premier independent diagnostic testing MRI facility. At Titan MRI, we're focused on you, the patient, having a great customer experience. Our MRI equipment is modern and 75% quieter than any unit in its class. And our MRI unit has one of the largest openings of any of the newer high-strength MRI units, which allows comfortable scanning for potential claustrophobic and larger patients. At Titan MRI, we look forward to serving you.
Great food, great atmosphere, a diverse menu, everything made from scratch, plenty of space, and locally owned. These are all the characteristics of a great restaurant, and you can find each and every one of them right here in Gainesville at Ballyhoo Grill. Ballyhoo Grill prepares all of their food fresh every day, from their salad dressing to their award-winning soups. Bring your family and enjoy dinner under the Tim Trebo Tiki Hut while listening to live music. Or if you're running low on time to eat out, they also deliver through Uber Eats, Bite Squad, and Postmates. A Gainesville staple that's been open for over 30 years. Check out Ballyhoo Grill on Facebook or at ballyhoogrill.com.
Process Service of Gainesville offers a rapid turnaround on affidavits of service for Gator lawyers locally and nationwide. Our friend Scott Hart offers immediate responses on status requests and is a member of NAPS and FAPS. And he has been a part of the community for almost 2 decades. Need service? Call Process Service of Gainesville at 407-697-9592 or email shartgators, that's G8TR, at yahoo.com. And make sure you ask about the paralegal legal secretary bonus program. Okay, welcome back to another duly noted podcast presented by Titan MRI from the Meldon Law Gator Studios. Great pleasure to bring in an old friend of mine, Sam Kouvaris, who we worked together. We worked with each other, even though we were competing all the time. Right, but exactly. Of course, he was at Channel 4 and now has Sam's Sportsline going, which is kind of cool if you read all of his stuff that he does. How are you, Sammy?
I'm good. Old, I think, is a relative term. It refers to, I guess, at least my age, but also before I came on, I was like, my wife said, who are you going on with? I said, I'm going with Pat. She said, do you know him? I said, 43 years and counting.
Yeah, it's been a while. I mean, gosh, you were doing play-by-play of the old Bulls games,
Yeah, that's right. Isn't that funny? And it's funny, last night I was hosting a banquet last night, and some guys were talking about the Bulls, which, still pops up, goofballs like, Don Bessalou and Mike Rozier and, people like that who were on the team. And I explained to a guy, I said, when they came out that year and Brian Sipe was the starting quarterback and there were 3 Heisman trophies in the backfield, that got your attention. I don't care what kind of league it was.
It did. And I make this contention that I'm the only person that I know of, and you were one of them too, though, that we got to cover a game where there were 5 Heisman trophies on the field, because you had the 3 with Jacksonville and then you had Herschel and Doug Flutie with the Generals. So that game, yeah, right. There were 5 Heismans on the field. You don't see that.
No, and the because it was the Generals, they called the field goal bad. But Danny Clark made that thing, from whatever, 53 yards or ever. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I remember the Greg Larson, the headline was, it was good by 2.5 feet. Because we looked at it. I remember we're looking up and I go, holy cow, they came back and won the game.
You won the game.
And I looked down and the referee had fallen. He had
He
slipped.
fallen on his face. That's right.
And he got up and he just went, no good.
And he looked at the other guy, and the other guy kind of gave him the and he waved it off. I was like, "Wait, there's 75,000 people here, dude. I mean, you're about to get trampled." So.
It was great. It was fun. I did want to talk to you about the Jaguars and what they've been kind of under the radar this offseason. Not a whole lot going on, and obviously the Trevor Lawrence contract was a big story. But other than that, there's nobody's really talking about the Jaguars this year.
Well, it's so funny, Pat, because last year that's all anybody talked about was the Jaguars, and where they were going, how they were going to progress, what Calvin Ridley was going to do to their offense, et cetera, et cetera. And when they went 1-5 at the end of last season, the Houston Texans sucked all the air out of the room in the AFC South. So when that happens, you're able to operate without too much media attention, and they certainly have done that. Trevor with the big contract, obviously, but you wonder what they're going to do with that wide receiver core that basically has been rebuilt a little bit, and they didn't pursue Derrick Henry. They end up with the same kind of running game. The thing that they did was shore up the middle of their offensive line, and when you do that. You give Trevor that other split second to find the second receiver. That's been the big kind of complaint about him, or the whisper is that he sees his first read and he has a tough time getting to his second read. Well, I mean, if you cover every game, like, obviously you and I have, he doesn't have time to get to that second read, because particularly up the middle. And I said this at this banquet last night. You remember when the Jaguars drafted Tyson Alualu? And everybody was like, who? What? Why? And it was 100% because Tom Coughlin believed that you had to win your division and be competitive in your division. And to win the division, the Jaguars had to beat Peyton Manning. And Peyton Manning was only affected by a pass rush right on his nose. And that's what Alualu was good at, period. And obviously, I think he's still in the league. Maybe?
I think he's still in the league. Yeah,
I know he's playing for the Steelers most recently, but I mean, but that was a purposeful, very intentional pick. Not just let's go get the best player. Let's get a guy who's going to have an impact in our division right now. And so, what the Jaguars do this year, I think, depends on Trevor's development. Which this is the year, It's kind of a shame that Trevor had to endure that year with that buffoon Urban Meyer, but
I'm not arguing with you.
but at the same time, and it's funny because I told Shad, and I told Shad before he hired him, this is the wrong thing. And at the time, I was writing for the Florida Times Union, your former employer, and I was writing the Sunday column, and I wrote him. I said, this is a bad thing, and then. The Sunday before he fired him, I had written an article, he's got to go. And, when that video came out of him in the bar in Ohio, I was sitting there and somebody sent it to me that night, right? I mean, and you get this kind of advanced information a lot from contacts and people that you have. So I'm sitting there on the couch and I got my phone like this, right? And I tap on it. And that video comes up, and I don't realize that my wife has walked behind me, right? And all I hear her say is, oh, he knows her. And I mean, you want to talk about an icicle down your spine. I was like, how do you know that? You've watched like 3 seconds of this video. She goes, oh, he knows her. And walked away. I was like, oh, this is stuff guys don't know that we probably prefer not to know. The fact that she knew right away,
Yeah,
so
exactly. No, it was, look, Urban and I get along, and we always have gotten along, but I do see all of his flaws, and I don't dismiss his flaws. Let's just put it that way.
Well, and I've said this all along. He had one motivational technique, and that's intimidation. And you can do that with college age guys who are still developing as people and certainly as athletes. But once you get into the professional ranks and these guys have worked on their bodies, honed their craft, gotten to a certain point, they're expecting the head coach to give them direction, to show them where the white lines are and show me how talented you are. And that's certainly not how he operates. And that's why he lasted 11 games.
Robbie had the best line about him, Robbie Andrew. He said, Urban coached college kids like they were pro kids and pro guys like they were college kids.
That's a good line. That's exactly right. Yeah.
And that was part of the problem. Well,
by the way, I know you dealt with him a lot, but I mean, I got a half dozen stories where he just treated me really poorly. And I would tell people all the time, when he looks at you in the press conference and goes, "Now, where are you from?" That's the signal to the PR guys. Don't let this guy in here anymore. And when I used to, in the Gainesville, he said that to me a half dozen times when I asked him an actual question. And then in the pros, here in Jacksonville, he changed that line to, that's a good question. He would say that and then blow you off. But whatever.
He's a unique. Like I always say, you can't be a football coach if you've got everything clamped down.
That's so true. So true.
All right, let's stay with the NFL because I know you have one of the 49 Hall of Fame votes for the NFL Hall of Fame, and a lot of us. I know you were very helpful in getting Jack Youngblood into the Hall of Fame. You presented Tony Baselli; he got in. Why can't we get Fred Taylor in? You're in those meetings. What is the argument against him?
The short answer is not enough Pro Bowls or all pro teams. That's the short answer. The quasi-long answer is this year, Fred made the final 15 for the first time. They call them semifinalists. For now, that's what they call them. I have heard rumors that there may be a slight change in how the voting goes and what the process becomes. But so he was one of 4 running backs who were eligible, and he's the only one as a modern era person at 25, but he made the final 15 of those other guys. So the question now is, since he didn't get in his first year, which is rare to begin with, did the voters, did they just want to hear Fred's case? And then next, do they want to hear Tiki Barber's case? And next, do they want to hear Ricky Waters' case? Or did they really believe that Fred was the top guy out of those 4? So we'll know that when the final 15 comes out this year. The other thing is that when, I saw every play that Fred Taylor played in person, every single one of them. And it just was kind of fascinating to do some research and realize that there were so many people on the committee who never saw Fred play. But when you talk to Hall of Famers of that era, whether it's Ray Lewis or Thurman Thomas or Marcus Allen, I talked to 6 different Hall of Famers. And every one of them, Troy Polamalu said to me when I talked to him, which, by the way, he answered me via text in Greek. And I was like, called him up and I said, Troy, where did you get the Greek alphabet on your phone? He goes, oh, my wife's Greek. He goes, it's so weird. You're Greek. My wife's Greek. I'm on my way to see Big Fat Greek Wedding 3. And I said, well, I won't keep you. Tell me something about Fred. And he said, Fred Taylor is the best running back I ever faced. I said, hang on. That's a massive statement. He goes, I knew you were going to call me. So I thought about what I would say to you. He said, in fact, I'll back that up by saying there was never a time when I was on the field with Fred Taylor where he wasn't the best of the 22 players on the field. And so you realize that he had a lot of respect. Ray Lewis just thinks he's the best running back he ever faced. Thurman Thomas, talked about how he would check his game against Fred's on a regular basis. But when you get down to it, Pat, 1998, Fred's a rookie. He gains 1,640 some yards from scrimmage, scores 17 touchdowns, which leads the league in touchdowns. So that's a pretty productive year for a rookie. Randy Moss, a rookie the same year. Randy Moss, 1,313 yards from scrimmage, and tied Fred for the league lead in touchdowns with 17. So, both of them had fantastic rookie years. You look at the Rookie of the Year voting, and Randy Moss wins Rookie of the Year. Maybe he deserved it. Hard to say. But when you look at the voting, Randy Moss got 94% of the vote. Fred Taylor and Peyton Manning split the other 6%. Well, why is that? Well, on Thanksgiving Day, Randy Moss caught 3 touchdowns on national television against the Dallas Cowboys. That same weekend, Fred Taylor played against the Cincinnati Bengals in a point-to-point broadcast that I think was blacked out in Cincinnati. So it was only shown in Jacksonville. So when you really get down to it, nobody saw him play except the guys that he played against. And, it's hard to do that. And in fact, I told Baselli in the 6th year of eligibility, I said, Tony, if you don't get in this year, you might not get in. He said, why is that? I said, your career ended basically in 2000. Most of these people were in elementary school who were on the committee. They never saw you play. And, we sent out videos and all that other stuff. And Baselli eventually got in because there were so many people who said, look, he was the dominant guy of the 5 tackles of that era, and the 4 other ones are in the Hall of Fame, and he was better than all of them. So, but you start looking at Pro Bowls and all pro teams that were sucked up by LaDainian Tomlinson, and then a bunch of one-offs, Fast Willie Parker. He's never going to get a sniff at the Hall of Fame, but that one year, I think he was the all-pro running back. I know he went to the Pro Bowl. Priest Holmes, wonderful player. But, that sustained greatness that Fred had, plus the long touchdowns, and, of course, the stat that everybody talks about, there are 3 guys who averaged 4.6 yards per carry who are eligible for the Hall of Fame. 2 of them are in, Jim Brown, Barry Sanders. The third one's Fred Taylor.
Yeah.
How many?
That's good company right there.
How many 60-yard touchdowns did Thurman Thomas have? And I asked Thurman that. He just went, well, not many. I said, you had 1. He goes, how many Fred have? I said, 13.
Yeah.
He said, how many Barry have? I said, 15. I said, this is the kind of comparison that you can easily make statistically, but it's hard for people when they didn't actually see it, when it was happening.
Right. And again, we're prejudiced. I'm prejudiced.
Sure.
We love Fred and love to see him get in, but we'll see how that happens. Speaking of that, I wanted to ask you about the future of the Florida-Georgia game, because obviously when the Jaguars build their new stadium or redo their stadium, Florida-Georgia will move somewhere during those 2 years. My theory is if they go to another neutral site and they offer them a lot of money, that Jacksonville could be in danger of losing the game.
I agree with that. And I've said for 40 years that the city doesn't do enough to welcome the game as a cultural event where they happen to play a football game.
Right.
They just have never done enough. They opened the Landing when it was still there and just said, all right, have fun. But, Pat, they ought to close down Bay Street and put food vendors on there and make it a walking thing and make it a whole weekend. They should do that with the Gate River Run as well. I mean, there are 2 times where for as long as I've lived here, they've talked about, downtown needs to be developed. Well, there's 2 times where we invite people downtown, the Florida-Georgia game and Gate River Run. And in both instances, when the event is over, we say, go home, We don't say, hey, hang around, do this, do that. I mean, we don't say any of that. And, there ought to be a Gator balloon flying over one end zone and a Bulldog balloon over the other end zone. And I just remember the one year, and I'm sure you remember this, that they put up those giant big screens around the stadium, which I thought was a great idea, because if there's 85,000 people inside, there's 100,000 people still outside who just go down for the cultural happening of being a part of it. And I remember the next year, then Florida President Bernie Matchin said, we're not going to allow that anymore because it promotes drinking. And I said, has he ever been to the game? I mean, it promotes drinking? That's the reason? Come on, give me a better reason for that, because now you got guys who have, streaming in the back of their pickup truck and 1,000 people standing around the back of a pickup. It's not going to change the behavior of the fans. And, you need to try to accommodate them. And it just never been able to understand why we haven't done that.
No, I don't either. And, but I do think that when they get, like, let's just say it's the Mercedes-Benz and Camping World, or where they play the games, and they're offering them a ton of money, and they're going to say, hey, maybe we need to get out of here. I don't know. I do know the South Georgia people are not going to like that, and they really love that game.
Yeah, but money talks.
And it does.
And if, as Jacksonville, as they've tried so many things, and I'm incredibly disappointed in the current administration and their approach toward what's going on with trying to lure sports to town. We used to be in the rotation in Jacksonville for the NCAA basketball, first and second rounds. I mean, that's a step in the right direction. Why isn't the new arena competing with Omaha to get the swimming championships when they've shown you can build a pool in the middle there? I mean, there's just so many things that they could be at least in the mix, so that eventually, and that's how we got an NFL team. Just started that process, and it took forever, but you were in the mix all the time. People were talking about it, and eventually it happened.
Yep, absolutely. All right, it's time for us to play Yes, No, Where, or Maybe with Sam Kouvaris from samsportsline.com, where we have 3 questions, and they are brought to you by Big Mills Cheesesteaks, street dining done the right way. And if you say you watch this podcast, you get free fries with the order. All right, number 1, yes, no way, or maybe. Sammy the K, Jacksonville hosts a playoff game this year.
Yes.
Okay, you feel, but you're not confident because you had to really think about it.
Well, it definitely wasn't a no, but it was either yes or maybe. Okay. But the yes, and because this is the year that Trevor is expected to, and I think takes that step forward. I ran into him the other day. He's bigger, he's stronger, he's spending more time at the stadium. There's a lot of rumblings that he wasn't spending enough time at the stadium, that he had some other, personal issues he was trying to work out. A lot of that's been resolved, and as you and I very well know, if everything that went in these ears and these eyes came out of this mouth, there'd be a lot of divorces and firings in this town. Right? So, but I think this is the year that he takes a big step forward, and the fact that the Jaguars have put a veteran center in front of him who's going to win the starting job unless he gets hurt. I think that's those are the kind of things that the Jaguars didn't make any big splashes in free agency, but the guys that they did get, they got not for September. They got them for December and January.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, number 2 on yes, no, where, or maybe. The TPC, the Players Championship, is better in March than it was in May.
Maybe.
I kind of liked it in May.
Yeah, I like the flow of it in May. The competitive nature of the golf course is very different because of the weather in those basically 8 weeks between March when they play it and May when they did play it. But in March you do fight the vagaries of the weather, which we have had wonderful weather generally, even in March since it went back there. But I liked it better in May, and I thought it had a better flow. But the PGA Tour poobahs at the time really wanted it they wanted to make the golf course harder, and it's more difficult to do in May than it is in March.
All right, and finally, on yes, no, where, maybe with Sam Kouvaris, if you had to do all over again, you would be a fighter pilot.
Yes. As you know, I've been a pilot for almost 25 years, and I do have. I've been told I'm one of those rare people who have flown with both the Thunderbirds and the Blue Angels, and I have 10 hours in an FA-18 Hornet, to the point where the former Commodore at Cecil Field, I was having lunch with him over there one day, and he said to me, "How many hours you got in the Hornet?" And I said, "Well, 10." He said, "Yeah, that's a lot for a civilian." I said, "Well, thanks." And he said, "Can you come back to lunch tomorrow?" I said, "Sure." So I was back over there the next day, and McDonnell Douglas makes a patch. It's about that big, and it says FA-18 McDonnell Douglas, and then it says 1,000 hours, right? 1000, right? And then if you get 2,000, they give you 2,000 hour patch. He had some sailor unstitched the last two zeros and presented me with the 10-hour patch. I got it on my flight jacket, and while it's a big poser thing to begin with, it's nonetheless a tremendous conversation piece because people look at that and they go, "What the hell is that?" And so it's a great conversation, and but yeah, that's you know, you have gone through this, and in our careers, we were. We played a role in what was going on, but the people who we were talking to were actually doing that. And sometimes I would say, why am I not doing instead of reporting on? And fighter pilot, that would be right up there. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you're kind of tall to get in those because those are pretty cramped spaces.
I'm telling you, you get in the F-18. And I've got 3 carrier launches in the back of an F-18, which is a terrifying experience, particularly the first time. But you're right. The whole time you're just trying to duck down because that canopy looks like it's up here by your shoulder. It's down here by your waist. And you just feel like you're so exposed. Like the whole time I was just trying to slink down as much as I possibly could. So.
All right, Sam, great stuff. Anything you need to plug? I know samsportsline.com is where your stuff is.
No, I'm good. This is wonderful spending some time with you. And I just enjoy, my wife and I moved to the beach a couple of years ago, when my oldest daughter and her husband moved back with 2 of our grandchildren. So, I've been writing some music and, actually have had some gigs, and as you know, I sing professionally occasionally, and so just kind of as Shad Khan says, living the dream.
Well, that's my goal.
There you go.
Because I'm almost retired. I only got a few things I'm still doing, but just enough to keep me busy and have fun. And now you've inspired me to go pick up my guitar this afternoon and practice a little bit.
People have asked. I mean, I had a gig on 4th of July, which was a lot of fun to play guitar and sing, and with a guy who runs keyboards, Will Hurley, who's just a phenomenal musician. But people ask, are you okay? And what they're inferring is, do you have money to survive, right? And I always go inadvertently, thanks to my wife, I had do with it. I would be stupid with my money, but apparently my wife was not. So I guess we're fine.
That's my thing. And people say, what do you do for insurance? My wife has a job. That's where our insurance is.
There you go.
Always great talking to you, buddy. We'll be back with more of another Dooley Noted podcast presented by Titan MRI. And right after this break.
Meldon Law has been serving personal injury victims since 1971. In those days, Jeffrey Meldon's presence as an attorney in the music scene dubbed him with the nickname the Hippie Attorney. And although times have changed, 2 things haven't. Our commitment to bettering our community by helping the injured.
Albert, are you ready to go to the game?
And our love for the Florida Gators.
If you bleed orange and blue, Meldon Law is the firm for you.
Adams Rib Company has been a staple of Gainesville for more than a decade and a staple of the Dooley house ever since Kelsey's teeth came in. The first time I walked into Adams, I told my daughter that the green beans are always a test of a great barbecue restaurant, and they were perfect. You know about the ribs that melt in your mouth, and my favorite, the turkey plate. But be sure to go in on Fridays for Nana's Fish Nuggets. They will melt in your mouth. Adams Rib Co., a Gainesville great. Another duly noted podcast comes to you from the Coaches Podcast Room at Spurrier's Gridiron Grill and Celebration Point. You can watch and listen to us on Facebook and YouTube for every podcast that we do on Mondays and Fridays at 2 o'clock. Listen to the podcast whenever on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Overcast, any of the other 39 platforms where you can find this podcast or your favorite podcast. Remember to like, follow, and subscribe. If you have any questions or comments, leave them in the comments section below or call me if you want to do some advertising at 352-317-3444. Okay, welcome back to another duly noted podcast presented by Titan MRI from the Meldon Law Gator Studios here at the old Ponderosa. Let us move to our Hesser and Kipke three things. Hesser and Kipke, as you know, is a Gainesville law firm specializing in the areas of family law and workers' compensation. If you're a loyal listener of this show, you know who we are by now. If not, Google the firm, check out the reviews, and hear what our clients have to say. Ken and Jennifer can be reached 24/7 via call or text at 352-339-9920. That's 352-339-9920. Hesser and Kipke. Appreciate them so much. Let's get to number one. I did watch a lot of women's basketball last night, I got to say. There wasn't anything else on, as you know. It's usually the worst night of the year. And to be honest with you, the SEC Media Days repeats were not doing it for me. In that game, Caitlin Clark set the WNBA record for assists in a game with 19. She just keeps breaking records. Of course, they lost. They lost to a team with 5 wins. There's a reason why they had the first pick. Or they had the first pick or the second pick, whatever they had. But anyway, also announced yesterday was the WNBA getting a $200 million a year rights deal. ESPN is back to printing money, apparently. So, look, good for them. I'm not going to watch a lot of it. Caitlin Clark has drawn me in to watch some of it, but it's still women's basketball, and it's still it's got to be interesting. It's got to be teams that are going for playoffs, and you got all these stars now, Angel Reese, and you just got them everywhere. So sorry, my nose itching me. But anyway, she's done a lot for the game, and so is Angel Reese. I mean, and the rivalry they have, it's good for the game. It's not going to pull me in on a football Saturday or anything like that, which they're probably done by then anyway. But it is fun to watch at times. At times, I know that I will say this: I really loved watching the college women play. Because it meant, I don't know, it just meant something. Now I almost feel like I'm watching exhibitions, but they're drawing nice crowds, so good for them. All right, let's get to number 2 on our Hesser and Kipke three things, and that is that college football there was a story that broke yesterday. I don't know how big of a breaking news story it is, but it's significant. College football is not going to decide on the format for next year's college football playoff until after this year's. That makes a lot of sense. Well, that's because you got the commissioners making these decisions, not the NCAA. It makes sense for this reason. All right, we're going to have this system where you're going to have home games, you're going to have buys, and blah, blah, blah. Let's see how it works. Let's see how it works with the 12. Maybe we need to go to, who knows? We could be at 14 next thing you know. So you got to kind of wait and see what it happens. It's not like you have to make this massive adjustment. Gosh, we scheduled an entire football season in August during the COVID year. So it's not that hard. And it makes a lot of sense to wait and make sure that it doesn't need fine tuning. Make sure that it is fair to everybody. The inclusion. Make sure the inclusion is going to work. So again. Let the commissioners run college football. You guys can run everything else, and even I'm not going to complain about that. All right, that was number 2 on our Hesser and Kipke three things. Number 3 on our Hesser and Kipke three things. ESPN, of course, is doing a lot of lists right now, as most people are, because it's that time of year. One of them they did this week was that they ranked the stadiums. Okay. Now, they rank the stadiums, and you would automatically go, oh, Florida's probably 2 or 3 at the worst. No, they ranked them 20th, behind Doak Campbell, behind a lot of other ones that I didn't agree with. Now, there's a reason why Scott Strickland is trying to put money into the stadium and make it nicer. It does need improving. It needs rails. It needs a lot of things that need to happen at the stadium. But 20th, now you're telling me that if Florida right now was coming off 2 seasons where they won 11 games or 9 games even, that they would be ranked 20th? No, this is another example of how the attitude towards Florida, the program, everything gets dragged down because they haven't won enough. And that includes recruiting. Recruiting, he's doing a heck of a job considering he can't show them on the field how it's going to work yet. If he goes, yeah, come to our game, and you sit there and you watch them and you go, well, I can play for these guys, that's for sure. So, but that's not always the incentive, as we know. But 20th, come on, man. It's not the 20th best stadium. It's I know it has problems. It has issues, but it's better than 20th. I don't care what anybody says. It's not even close. Anyway, all right, so that's our Hesser and Kipke 3 things. Appreciate Hesser and Kipke, Ken and Jen over there. Let's get to our Adams Rib Coated Gator of the Week. And it was Fisher Jameson. Fisher Jameson, who made himself some money this season. I wasn't that sold on him. Second half of the season, he really came on and really did some great things and kind of helped this team, get to where they got. Obviously, getting all the way to the, semifinals of the College World Series. So, congrats, Fisher. He went the 10th round, and sure he's going out. I don't think there's much doubt that he's going to go out, but heck of a job by him pitching that well all season, or late in the season especially, and earning himself a 10th round draft pick and make a little cash. I don't know what the 10th round guys get. It's not a whole lot of money. It's probably like, no, I might say not a whole lot of money, maybe like $200,000. Of course, you go, I'd take it. So would I. All right, so congratulations to Fisher Jameson for being the Adams Ribco Gator of the Week. Let's get to our Leonardo's and Millhopper quick picks, and I'm going to make this one hard for you. Of course, I can't even give you the answer yet because the rankings, where the quick picks we did for last week was where Florida was going to get picked, but they haven't. I think they don't. They don't release that till tomorrow, but you'll find out tomorrow whether you were right or not. Here's the one for this week, though. I need the winning score at the Open. Just how many under? Okay, right now 3 unders leading. Could be more by the end of the day. A lot of wind over there. A lot of there's rainy conditions. It's been Scottish golf. It's been kind of fun to watch. But just give me a number. I think minus 13 won last year, but I don't think it'll be that low. My gut is around minus 9, minus 8, 8 under, 9 under, 7 under. But whatever you say, just put a number down. Just say 6 under. There's your answer. It's not hard. It's hard to get it right, but we'll see how many people do, and then we will add it all up. All right, so that's our Leonardo's at Millhopper quick picks. Jason Wilson. Send me an email. I want to make sure you got your package. You should have gotten it Friday. And I did go by and see Kyle and got some more gift certificates. Look at them all right here. Oh yeah, baby. You're ready for those. And we got some other stuff to give away as well. But anyway, yeah, so that's our Leonardo's and Millhopper quick picks. Winning score of the US Open of the Open, as they like to call it, but I call it the British Open. All right, let's move on to this, that, and the other. And as you know, this, that, and the other is sponsored by Ironwood Golf Course, by Dar-Shakow Insurance, and by Ballyhoo Grill. Appreciate all of them for being sponsors. All right, this is that Florida was dead. And when I say they were dead, people had basically, after recruiting, they had those losses in recruiting. People were just down on the Gators. I mean, it was universal. It was media. It was legitimate media. It was not legitimate media. It was local. It was everywhere. It was just that was the situation they had to deal with. All right, that was this. That is that the talking heads, and especially here well, not here, but in Dallas. Now, or we're all talking, especially Greg McElroy was talking up the mighty Gators and saying, "Hey, you know what? I think they could be better than everybody thinks," which is kind of what we've been saying this summer, that I think they're going to be better than people think. Now, again, they got to translate that into winning games that are close games. Okay. So that was that was that everybody seems to be, I had Matt Hayes on, I was on Matt Hayes' show, and he was talking about, I'm coming around on the Gators. I'm like, well, nothing's happened. And the other, though, is that I'm pretty sure it was Ben Watson, who's very good on TV, said what I have been preaching. And this was the way he put it. Okay. He said, I'm not that high on the Gators because they can't create turnovers. And I said, that's what I've been preaching. They can't create turnovers. They haven't created turnovers. Last year, they had 3 interceptions. I think they've had 3 straight years without double-digit interceptions. They were 100 and something in turnover margin. They don't get many fumble recoveries. They don't turn it over a ton, but they don't get turnovers. The best way to have a great offense is to get turnovers. That's the bottom line. Man, they scored 49. The offense was clicking. Yeah, well, 3 of them came from inside the other team's 10, you know. That's the thing. That is how you get to be great on offense. Special teams and turnovers. You got to have that. If you don't have those things working for you, you're not going to be great on offense because you're going to drive 80 yards every time. So all I'm saying is Florida's got to get turnovers this year. If they're going to be the same defense in terms of not getting turnovers, guess what? They're not going anywhere. So that's this, that, and the other. Appreciate our great sponsors there, Darshakal. Great folks at Ballyhoo. We appreciate all of them. All right, let's wrap it up here for a beautiful Thursday with our Swamp Games of the weekend. We got a lot of stuff going on. Should be a fun weekend. Golf, just so you know, the golf is on USA until like noon. So when you get up, you make sure you find the USA Network. It's on there till noon. If you're up at 4 a.m, I think it's on Golf Channel, but I'm not doing that again. I'm not doing what I did today again. But so it's on there and it's on till it ends, but 3 o'clock-ish. So you can still go play golf afterwards. So and it's on NBC if you're looking for it. It's weird that the Scottish Open was on CBS. I guess those guys weren't there, or at least Nance wasn't there, or maybe they were. I don't know. It's just kind of weird that you would go overseas with 2 different networks and do it, but hey, it's their money. What do I know? All right, let's give you some baseball. Saturday on Fox, 7:15, Red Sox and Dodgers. Ought to be a good one. And then you can watch it again Sunday. Different game, of course. Sunday, it's on ESPN at 7. Boston at the Dodgers. Go Red Sox. That's all I can say about that. And then finally, we have the Team USA versus Team WNBA, which I couldn't tell you how that's all being divided up. I just know it is. And they're playing 8:30 Saturday on ABC. So it's a big event. I'll know more about it as I get closer to it. And I'll probably watch it too. It actually should be pretty interesting. All right. So that's our Swamp Games of the weekend. Obviously, women's basketball is kind of taken this period off, and then they're playing that one game, and I think it's good for people to take some time off. I think these poor young ladies that go right from college and playing in all these intense situations and then right into playing the WNBA, they probably could take a little bit of a rest. All right, that's going to do it for the show. Appreciate everybody for watching or listening, and appreciate our great guests today. And again, we'll be back Monday with Coach Spurrier and Robbie, and then on Thursday with Chris Lowe. And thanks again, as always, to Zach for doing a great job. We will be back, as I said, we'll be back Monday. And until then, I am Pat Dooley. I'm deep. I am way back, and I am out of here.